Glenn again. This time we're talking about, well, there's some cases where you want to use fishing flies, but you're not a fly fisherman or you don't have your fly rod. Well, you can use a bubble fly rig. In this case, I'm showing you a torpedo style bubble fly. And what will happen is you'll set the line here going to the fly, and then you'll get the line here going to your rod. This is the torpedo float. I think I've got a follow-up video to this one that you should be able to get a good idea as to the different styles of setting up the bubble fly rig, in this case with that torpedo style, as well as the adjust the bubble or adjust the float, and then these clear plastic ones that are kind of circular. All right, do check out how to set up a bubble fly rig, and do check out how to fish a bubble fly rig.
Various floats that we will use in this demo. We'll start out with the Tough Bubble and some manufacturer instructions on how to use and set up one. Then the Torpedo Float, and also an illustration on how to use that as well and set that one up. And the Adjust-A-Bubble. And I'll go and show on the back of the package more illustrations and instructions on how to set that one up as well. And there's the three floats that we'll be describing. And we'll start out with the Tough Bubble. And here we're going to take 2 beads, and we're going to run our monofilament line through it. Make a loop with it here shortly. And once we have that loop, we'll use that first one to be as a stop so that the bubble float won't go any higher. Run it through the narrow section first, and then once we do that, we'll go ahead and set up another bead, making that loop as well. And again, this is different than the manufacturer's directions, and the reason why we do this is to allow the ability to adjust the float by loosening the loops up and down the line, and being able to either increase or decrease the amount of line that we're going to have fish below the bobber, or in this case that bubble float. It's a little bit more flexible than just putting a swivel on the end as the manufacturer's instructions showed. Alright, next up is the torpedo float. And there's an illustration as to how to set it up, and it's fairly straightforward. Take our line, the fishing line, using a improved clinch knot is what we're using here, and we're going to set it on the wider end of the bobber. Do the same thing on the narrower end, and at that point we're ready to go with it. Alright, next up is the Adjust-A-Bubble. This is one where it has a lighted capability to it. This one's really easy to set up. You run your line through the rubber stopper. Once you get it through, you can adjust it to the length of line you want to fish, twist it, and you're ready to go. And actually the Tough Bubble as well as the Adjust-A-Bubble, you can add water to the hollow cavity, and that'll allow you to add weight to the setup so you can cast it better. And that was the Adjust-A-Bubble. And there's the Tough Bubble on top, torpedo float in the middle, and the Adjust-A-Bubble at the bottom. And here's a illustration of using a shock leader and the Tough Bubble rig. That shock leader allows for a little bit more capability or strength in the setup, so that you don't have to worry as much of any fish breaking it off. And next up is the torpedo float, where we're using improved clinch knots to tie our fishing line as well as fishing leader and tippet to the eyelets of the torpedo float. And then we have the Adjust-A-Bubble rig, where we're just running our line through the bubble float and then twisting the rubber stopper, allowing us to fish and adjust the amount of line that we want to fish under the bubble float. Also, in the case of the Adjust-A-Bubble as well as the Tough Bubble rig, we're able to open up the stoppers and add additional water, possibly vegetable oil, to give it more weight and castability.
See if we can do that video that says how
we like fishing the bubble fly rig. And so what we have over here are 3 bubble fly rigs. All right, and the first one is going to be the one that we call the Tough Bubble, and we use the beads on above and below the float. We've got a, it's like a little gold rib hare's ear nymph on it. Next one will be the Torpedo Float right here. And it has a little near deer. And then finally, we've got the Adjust-A-Bubble. And this one has a Griffith's net on it. This is the Adjust-A-Bubble. All right, this is the one that we tend to use most because it's the easiest one to use. So with that, let's go and show you how we fish these rigs. Okay, so first up is the Tough Bubble rig with that gold rib hare's ear nymph. And just to show you what we like about the Tough Bubble rig is the ability to adjust the length below the indicator or below the Tough Bubble by either moving these beads up like this. You can see how it moves up, and then do the same here. Okay, so you can just kind of move these beads up and down as needed. In this case, we've got a shock leader that we've attached, so that there's a little bit more flexibility in how much we can take on that leader. So go ahead and bring it down right about here this time. That'll give us about, I think it's like about 3-4 feet of line, and we'll go ahead and give it a shot. In this case, you can, all 3 cases, you can fish them the same way, which is you can cast it out and you'll let it just kind of drift along, or you can twitch it, or you can do a steady retrieve. So this one we're just going to do a really slow drift, dragging the line or the bubble float along with the fly, really slow. We can feel that, or we can see that it's little guys, little bluegill hitting it, or what we think are little bluegill, and they're just barely taking the fly. There we go. All right, got a little bluegill on the Tough Bubble. Again, this is that one where we put a shock leader on, and where we have these beads that are adjustable to give us more depth. In this case, it's about maybe 2.5 feet of depth, and we were able to catch this guy. All right, so that was the Tough Bubble. In this case, it went with a slow, steady drift, very slow drift, but bottom line, he went for it. Next up, we're going to use the Torpedo Float right here. This is the Torpedo Float, and we'll have a near deer underneath it. The thing about this one is it's a set length, so if we want to give more line, we're going to have to add or remove, cut the length to get the tippet end going, and then you've got the other piece here connected. So the adjustability on this one is you have to basically retie, untie, cut, and whatnot, and get your fly on there to the length that you want. All right, so let's give it a shot. In the case of the Torpedo Float, you're not able to adjust the weight. There's no bobber stop in there to allow you to change the weight or the weight of the bobber and make it heavier. In this case, when we normally fish the near deer or some kind of streamer, we'll do a steady retrieve or a twitch. And the commotion on top, as well as the near deer itself, the fish and fly, usually get a hit or two. All right, something hit it on that pop and go retrieve. Oh, a little bass, All right, okay, so this was on the near deer. This was on a near deer with that Torpedo Float. Again, this is the one where if you want to change your fly, you're going to have to untie, retie. There's a little bass on that little olive near deer. Okay, so what worked on that one, it was basically the stop and go retrieve, twitching the bubble to give it some commotion, and then he hit it as it was being retrieved. All right, fun stuff. So again, how we like to fish a bubble fly rig with the allowing us to fish fishing flies without a fly rod. We'll go ahead and switch over to that Adjust-A-Bubble. Okay, next one up is the Adjust-A-Bubble. What's so nice about this one is you can pull the stopper right here, twist it. You can add more water to it, just like the Tough Bubble, but this one you can just run your line through and go ahead and just start fishing. You can just move it up and down as need be. Additionally, if you're worried about some larger fish, you can make that shock leader. So you add that shock leader to this, and then you just tie your fishing leader and tip it to it. And to this one, we're going to use a Griffith's Gnat, see if we can get something on the top on a dry fly. If not, we'll switch over that Near Deer and try it again. So let's see how it goes. Let's go ahead and adjust it and give it more line. All we did was undo it, untwist it, and then go ahead and twist it again. Get it back in place, and there it is. It's nice and secure. Added about another foot of line to it. Let's go over here where the shallow area is, and let's see if we get something to hit over here. Something chasing something in the shallows. All right, that one hit. Okay, just took it and slurped it just under. Full beans. Little bluegill on that dry fly Griffith's Gnat. Okay, that's how we fish a bubble fly rig. We start out with the torpedo float, or Tough Bubble float over there. And then we have the torpedo float, and finally the Adjust-A-Bubble. And this is the one that we tend to use the most, mainly because it's the easiest one to make adjustments to, because you can just untwist the rubber stopper and move it up and down, add water as well.